gone? No, my editor. Can you believe that? Okay, let's try this again. In the last few episodes, we've talked a lot about working with your dungeon master, asking your DM first, and checking with your DM to see if your idea fits into their world. But why? Just checking. What does it mean to work with your DM? Why is this important to your character and your game? What makes your DM so important? Stick around as we look into how working with your DM can help you with your backstory and make your campaign and your characters more interesting, fun, and easy to run. Welcome back to Heroes in the Making. I'm your lore weaver, Nikki, and today we're going to talk about what it actually means to be the game master or dungeon master of a game, and how and why we as players can work with them to get the most out of our games. Now, if you've ever played a tabletop role-playing game, then you already have an idea of what one is. They're the person at the head of the table making up the story we get to help tell together. But what is a GM or DM really? Do you know all the hats they wear while you're sitting at the table with them or during the time between games? If you're new to TTRPGs, you may not know why it's important to work with them on your character and your backstory. So let's start at the beginning and look at what a DM does. Perhaps after we do, we can answer those questions. The 5e D&D Dungeon Master's Guide says a DM is the creative force behind a D&D game. The DM creates a world for other players to explore and also creates and runs adventures that drive the story. The book goes on to guide a DM through world building, planning and prepping for adventures, and the rules, but I feel like this is just the tip of the iceberg here. Let's look at the D&D fandom wiki, which puts it a little more into perspective, I think. It states a game master is a person who acts as an organizer, rules officiant, arbitrator, or someone who makes important decisions within a dispute, and moderator for a multiplayer role-playing game. The role of a game master in a tabletop role-playing game is to weave the other participants' player character stories together, control the non-player aspects of the game, create environments in which the players can interact, and solve any player disputes. The Game Master prepares the game session for the players and the characters they play, describes the events taking place, and decides on the outcome of players' decisions. The Game Master also keeps track of non-player characters, or NPCs, and random encounters, as well as the general state of the game world. Game Masters must also maintain game balance, as hideously overpowered monsters or players are no fun. That's more like it, and that's a lot of hats. Let's take a closer look at what all this really means. First and foremost, the role of the DM is a leadership one. Your DM is in charge, and in more ways than one. Many times your DM is going to be who reaches out to you and the other players to organize when to play next. They'll be the ones setting up your session 0, or setting aside their time to help everyone with character creation. If you have an issue with another player or questions about the game, it's your DM who you'll go to, because it falls to them to help mediate this type of situation. If you can't find the answer to a rules question, go to your DM, who's also your game's moderator, the one who makes sure everyone's following the rules of the game, even the house ones, and ensures everyone is having a good time. They're also the person who calls out what rolls to make and when, which is a pretty important aspect of the game. We don't have all those pretty dice for nothing. We want to use them. And ultimately, all in-game final decisions fall to your DM because they are in charge of the game. What they say goes. A good DM will keep those decisions as unbiased, fair, and balanced as possible. That doesn't mean you can't ask for clarification, make a good case on why you should be able to do what you want to do, or talk about the rules, but it does mean what your DM says goes. Often, but not always, it's better to discuss some things with your DM after the game instead of arguing while playing at the table. A good DM will admit when they're wrong and take steps to correct most mistakes in the future if they're able to while keeping continuity. But you should also keep in mind that the source books for most TTRPGs are guidelines, and your DM is allowed to bend things fairly to fit the narrative. And don't forget game balance. It's also your DM's job as a leader to make sure the party and the monsters in your game are balanced, that one person in the party doesn't have a +5 Holy Avenger while the rest of you are fighting with sticks, or that a monster can't just TPK all of you in one blow unless there's a good story-driven reason. Perhaps you're all supposed to die and make your way out of the underworld. Maybe that's part of the story. You don't know. The next hat your DM wears is one of world building. The world your DM creates, whether it's a world completely of their own making like Matt Mercer's Exandria, or one already established such as the Forgotten Realms, takes time. It lives and breathes and changes just like the real world. Your Dungeon Master should be having a conversation with you and the other players on what type of world you like to be able to properly meet you all in the middle for a happy compromise before starting any long-form campaign. So when I say work with your DM when creating your character to make sure it fits into their world, it's simply because your DM's world might not work for every character. But wait, shouldn't you be able to make and play your character however you want? Well, yes, but I think you'll be pretty unhappy creating a character who isn't suitable for the world in which you're creating it. For example, if your DM creates a fantasy world without magic, yes, I know that's extreme, just bear with me, and you want to play a wizard, well, that's impossible for this type of world. It would be pretty boring to play a wizard without magic. Or if you and the other players have opted for an urban fantasy setting, it's going to be a lot more fun to create a character built for sprawling cities than one whose strengths lie with being in the forest when you don't plan on being in the forest. And working with your DM on writing your backstory not only helps you create a solid and believable character in their world, but also helps your DM figure out how to weave your character and your backstory you've worked so hard on into it for better storytelling and a more believable world. Case in point, I'm currently running a game in a world based on different fairy tales for my youngest and 3 of their friends. During our session 0, we all sat down individually to discuss their characters, and eventually I was able to secretly choose a fairy tale each one could fit into for their story arcs. One teen chose to create a bard with a minimal backstory to allow the narrative to build them into a hero. They don't remember much about their parents, they don't even remember really being with them. They do know they don't want to be stuck in one place, and they love to wander, which is their motivation. They also know they love to make people happy with their music, that they play on their cello. This is fine. And this is their goal, to make people happy. Well, a few days later, I watched Mickey and the Beanstalk on Disney+. If you've never seen it, first, shame on you. Go watch it after this video. And second, spoilers, it's set in Happy Valley, where there's a harp who plays music which makes everyone happy. Well, the giant steals her, and this beautiful, lush valley starts to wither and die, becoming a place where nothing will grow, and happiness is but a memory. Which then leads to the Beanstalk growing and Mickey meeting the giant, and well, like I said, shame on you, go watch it for yourself. That cartoon gave me the idea to weave this cello-playing bard's backstory into the fairy tale of Jack and the Beanstalk. If we hadn't worked together on their backstory, this opportunity could have completely passed me by. DMs find inspiration for their plots and hooks everywhere. Trust me. Speaking of, the third chapeau your DM wears is adventure planning and preparation. They are the ones spending hours, and I do mean hours, creating the setting you play in, the people you meet, and the plots and hooks to get you interested in the story. They create the mysteries, the villains, and the reasons your party's working together. They draw up the dungeon, plan the monsters and traps, look up different ways to describe things realistically to pull you in, and they figure out how the villain is going to take over the world this time, and make sure you're finding the information and tools you need to uncover their evil scheme. They offer you direction in the game with different ways your party can delve into the world they've worked so hard to build. They'll take your character's motivations and goals, along with the direction you want your character to go, to a whole new level to engage you personally into their world and the story you're telling together. Your DM volunteers a lot of their spare time to try and create stories and plots you will enjoy and want to be a part of. This is on top of work and family time and chores, so make sure you thank your DM today for the time they put into creating the awesome adventures and situations you and your party continue to find yourselves in. And the final hat, but by no means least or last, that your DM wears is narrator or storyteller, and being able to talk to themselves. Just let me explain. Listen, you can't have a game if someone isn't making up the story you're all a part of. The DM is that person. They're the ones calling the shots, describing everything to you so you know what you can interact with, taking your die rolls into account to tell you pertinent information, and so many other things. They are the main storyteller, And you get to be a part of where the narrative goes because you and your friends at the table are storytellers too. However, you get to play one character. Your DM, they have to play every other character in the game. An angry mob? Every person in the mob is played by your DM. Two people arguing over who gets the last piece of cake. Your DM plays both those people, and so on. Your DM is absolutely talking to themselves and most likely enjoying it. They're also creating the backstories, motivations, and goals for every other important character your party will come across, so they have their own roadmap on how to interact with you when you do meet them. Working with your DM here translates to all of you being on the same page of what type of story you want to tell. Again, something to discuss at session 0. Do you want a murder mystery, lots of puzzles, an apocalypse to stop, a coming-of-age story? Do you want to be the heroes or the villains? Or do you just want to tell your character's stories? Your DM should take that decision along with your party's individual backstories to steer your campaign in a direction everyone at the table is happy with. So, the next time you're playing D&D, remember, not only is your DM playing 1,000,000,001 other characters, they're also secretly making sure you're playing your character correctly rules-wise, playing the monsters, talking to themselves, improvising like a champ, trying to follow the notes they've made, making their own rules, checking the rules, changing the music to match the narrative, and keeping all of you on task. They've spent their own time on creating something special. And on top of all that, they want to work with you to create a good story. They want to spend time with you, and they want to make you and your character feel special. They do a lot. So in summary, why is working with your DM so important? Honestly, because good communication between the DM and the players makes for awesome storytelling. Also, improved role-playing, more personal engagement, and a whole lot more fun. Talking to your DM makes everything better, from personal story arcs to magic items to the plot itself, and it helps them with those so important plot hooks to pull all of you into the story, which makes you want to come back to the table to play again and again. Let me know in the comments or on my Facebook page ways you've worked with your DM on your character. DMs, let me know something a player has done to make you feel special. I'll see you all in a couple of weeks, and until then, remember, I've got your backstories.